want to welcome you back to our Stitch in Time series. We're going to be taking our reading from the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 24. I encourage you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell next to the subscribe button so that you can be notified of our upcoming videos. All right, we're in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24. It says, "And let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works." Many are familiar with the next verse about not forsaking the assembling together of the brethren. And so there are many Christians who do go to church, who do fellowship with one another, I should say, do attend meetings together. But they do not do what is recommended in verse 24. It says, "So let us consider one another in order to stir up one another to love and good works." So in other words, what this is saying is, we need to stir one another up to love and good works. We all need people in our lives to help us, to stir us up, to provoke us, to stimulate us. This word means to incite us, to sharpen us, so towards love and good works. In other words, people need people in their lives who have an eye on them. In fact, this word, let us consider one another, means to give attentive care on an ongoing basis to one another, to scrutinize one another, to perceive, to understand, to have an idea that you're going to fix your attention on someone for the purpose of provoking them in the right way, to provoke them to love, to provoke them to good works, to scrutinize, to get to know them well enough to do this. Unfortunately, many Christians, when church meetings are over, they disperse, they never see one another for the whole week. Sometimes we can even ask people, who sits in front of you in church? Same people for months, sometimes years, don't know them. And we need this in our lives. We need to be stirring one another up to love and good works. I want to take us over to a passage. I love this passage. It's in the book of Colossians, chapter 4. And Paul's writing to the church in Colossae. And this is what he says in verse 17. He's asking the church people to do this. He says, "And say to Archippus, take heed to the ministry which you have received in the Lord, that you may fulfill it." Imagine the letter comes to the church in Colossae, and every church person is told, make sure you say something to Archippus. Make sure you say to him, take heed to the ministry which you've received in the Lord, that you may fulfill it, that you may complete it. This word fulfill has the idea that you complete it, fill it to the full, that you may abound in your ministry, Archippus, to cram it full like a net. This word has the idea of even to discover by doing. Actually, this word take heed has that idea, to discover by doing. In other words, Archippus, you need to be looking at, perceiving, understanding, focusing your attention on the ministry that you have received in the Lord. Because why? Archippus needed people to stir him up, to bring him to the end of his ministry, so that his ministry could be complete and be what God intended it to be. Now, Paul refers to Archippus in the book of Philemon in verse 2 and calls him a fellow soldier in the Lord. This is quite a compliment from the Apostle Paul. So some have read this and thought, well, maybe Archippus was just a lazy somebody and he needed everyone in the church to be telling him, take heed to your ministry. Maybe he was being negligent. But the idea actually could be that Archippus was, because these letters were written very close to one another, Archippus actually was a good minister of the Lord, but he still needed people in his life to say, there's more for you to achieve, Archippus. There's more that can be done. You can discover more about your ministry by doing it and fill it to the full. You can complete that which you have received, not just from a person, but in the Lord. There's a ministry for you, Archippus. And the Colossian church, it appears that Archippus may have been one of the leaders in the church in Colossae. Some feel that he was probably one of the elders or one of the pastors there. So imagine being a church leader and having every person in the church saying to you, hey, take heed to your ministry. Focus on your ministry that you may fill it to the full and complete it. Well, it appears that Archippus is the son of Philemon, and the church met in Philemon's house. And so, this is a very interesting story of ministry and how the church is working together to bring out the best in its individual members, but also in its church leaders. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't done this, maybe you say, as I'm listening to this, I realize I don't have anything in my life to stir me up to love and good works. Well, I'm sorry if that's happening in your life right now, but be the person that studies others and begins to provoke others towards love and good works. Not towards wrath, nor towards irritation, but to understand them fully so that you might know how to say it and what to say so that you might help them to fulfill their potential. One day they will eternally thank you for your part that you have played in their life in stimulating them to fulfill their ministry. And may God richly bless you. I believe if you sow these seeds into other people's lives, God will see that they also come back to you, and there'll be others that help you with yours. We look forward to seeing you again as we take a stitch in time.